Hello everyone. Let's dive straight into integrating Copilot Control. The formal definition of the Copilot Control in Power Apps is a next-generation conversational AI component that enables users to interact with their data using natural language, effectively bridging the gap between complex data structures and intuitive user intent. In plain everyday English, it's simply giving your app a mouth and a brain so it can talk to your users. Think about how we used to use apps. If you wanted to find a specific sales report, you had to click 3 menus, apply 2 filters, and scroll through 1,000 rows. It was like hunting for a needle in a haystack. But with the Copilot control, the user just types, "Show me all the sales from last Tuesday in Delhi," and boom, the answer is right there. Stay with me here because we are moving away from click, click, click and moving toward talk, talk, done. You've probably seen this at the office where people get frustrated because they can't remember which button does what. Let's break this down together. The Copilot control is the ultimate easy button for your application. So now that we've mastered the idea that our apps can now hold a conversation, you might be wondering what powers this brain and where it gets its information from. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is connecting Copilot to Dataverse tables. This brings us to data source binding for Copilot. The technical definition describes this as the configuration of the control's data source property to point toward a specific Dataverse table, allowing the underlying large language model to index and query the records within that schema. To speak naturally, it is giving the Copilot a library card. A brain is useless if it has nothing to read. When you drop a Copilot control onto your screen, the first thing you have to do is tell it which shelf in your Dataverse library it should look at. Imagine a dummy example. You are building an app for a local library. You point the Copilot at the books table. Now, when a user asks, "Do you have anything about space travel?" the Copilot knows exactly where to look. It doesn't just search for the word space, it understands that a book about the moon is relevant too. You've probably noticed at the office how some search bars are just dumb and only find exact matches. But because our Copilot is linked to the intelligent foundation of Dataverse, it's much smarter. Let's break this down together. Binding the data is how we feed the AI the facts of our business. So, now that we've mastered how to give our AI assistant the right books to read, you might be wondering how we make sure it only talks about the right things and doesn't get confused by extra data. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is configuring Copilot fields and views. Now we need to talk about Copilot field configuration. The formal definition says this is the selective process of choosing which columns and views from the data source are exposed to the AI model to optimize response accuracy and ensure the conversational context remains relevant to the user's task. In simple everyday English, it's telling the AI what's important. Just because your table has 50 columns doesn't mean the user needs to talk about all of them. Imagine a dummy example of a customer support app. Your table might have a column for internal server code or database ID. A user will never ask about those, and if the AI sees them, it might get distracted. You pick the view that only includes the customer name, issue description, and status. This keeps the AI focused. Stay with me here because a focused AI is a fast and helpful AI. You've probably seen this at the office when you ask someone a simple question and they give you a 10-minute answer with too much detail. We don't want our Copilot to do that. Let's break this down together. We are setting the boundaries for the conversation. So now that we've mastered how to keep our AI on topic by picking the right fields, you might be wondering how we help the user start the conversation if they aren't sure what to ask. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is setting up prompt suggestions. This brings us to prompt suggestions. The technical documentation defines these as predefined natural language strings that appear as clickable options for the user, guiding them toward common queries and demonstrating the capabilities of the conversational interface. In plain language, it is icebreakers for your AI. Sometimes, a user stares at a blank chat box and freezes. They think, "What am I allowed to ask this thing?" We give them a head start. Imagine a dummy example of a project tracker app. Instead of a blank box, we put 3 little buttons at the bottom that say which projects are over budget, who is the lead on the website launch, and show me tasks due today. The user clicks one and the conversation starts flowing. You have probably seen this on websites where a little bubble pops up and says, "How can I help you today?" It makes the app feel much more proactive and friendly. Let's break this down together. Suggestions are the training wheels that help our users become experts at talking to their data. So now that we have mastered how to lead our users into a productive conversation, you might be wondering how we handle the look and feel of the Copilot to make sure it doesn't block the rest of our beautiful app. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is positioning and responsive UI integration. Let's dive into UI integration for Copilot. The formal definition describes this as the spatial arrangement and responsive configuration of the Copilot control within the canvas layout to ensure it provides a seamless user experience across different device form factors. To put it very simply, it is finding the right seat for the AI. You don't want the Copilot box to be so big that it covers up your data tables, but you don't want it so small that people can't read the text. Often, we put it in a side panel that can slide in and out. Imagine a dummy example. You are on a phone in a warehouse. You want the Copilot to take up the whole screen while you are talking to it, but then shrink away when you need to see the barcode you are scanning. We use the responsive design rules we learned earlier, like parent width, to make sure the chat box looks great on a tablet or a laptop. You've probably noticed at the office how annoying it is when a pop-up gets stuck in the middle of your screen. We avoid that by building the Copilot directly into the flow of the app. Let's break this down together. A great intelligent app is one where the AI feels like a natural part of the family, not a stranger sitting in the way. So, now that we've mastered how to place our AI assistant perfectly on the screen, you might be wondering how we make sure the AI is actually telling the truth and not just making up pretty stories. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is testing accuracy and responsible AI guardrails. Finally, we reach accuracy and responsible AI. This part of the framework involves validating the AI's responses against the actual data in Dataverse and implementing governance to ensure the conversational output is fair, inclusive, and secure. In our relaxed classroom tone, it simply means the truth check. Since the Copilot is using a large language model, it's very good at sounding confident, even if it's wrong. In my 25 years, I've seen people trust a computer too much. We have to test it. Imagine a dummy example. You ask the Copilot, "Who is our top salesperson?" and it says John Doe. You need to go into your table and make sure John Doe actually has the highest numbers. We also make sure the AI follows the security rules we set up in Dataverse. If a user isn't allowed to see salaries, the Copilot won't tell them no matter how nicely they ask. You've probably noticed at the office how important trust is. If the app lies once, nobody will use it again. Let's break this down together. We are building an assistant that is brilliant, but also honest and well behaved. We've looked at the brain of the app, giving it a library card, picking the right topics, breaking the ice with prompts, finding it a seat on the screen, and finally, making sure it tells the truth. We've mastered integrating Copilot control. You now know how to make your app a conversational pro. Well, that brings us right into our next chapter.